So we're working with the director from Equitable Solutions directly and one of the staff here at the shelter directly, along with a few of the city officials and representatives. And then I have my own caseworker from DCFS, caseworker from TASC, and, court-appointed officials. With all of these services going on, there should be no way that we would ever be outside. I pump breast milk every 4 to 6 hours throughout the night and day. It's just not realistic or productive that people who are complying with services through the court and have children and take all of their drug tests and are always negative would be punished. It's almost like that in itself is manufacturing crime. Check out this article. So I'm going to actually read an article that I wanted to share about the criminalization of homelessness and the adverse effects that this has on society overall. It actually puts everyone from the rich to the poor in a more vulnerable state. And I'm going to go live right now and read that article with you guys if you'd like to join me. Hi guys. Okay, so this is from Chicago Hopes for Kids. And this is an article that I found incredibly intelligent, very easy to understand, and it hits all of the main points that I've been trying to articulate while actually being affected firsthand by these circumstances. Living on the streets or in public spaces means constantly being vulnerable. This includes being susceptible to natural disasters, to illness, and to the system and people we have to place our we have in place to ideally protect us. Law enforcement and our criminal justice system. Cities are responding to growing frustrations toward homelessness from the public with a new tactic: legislation designed to hide the homeless rather than help them. Being homeless is not explicitly illegal in the United States, but currently there are civil and criminal laws which make the behaviors of homeless people illegal. Law enforcement threatens or punishes homeless people for doing things in public that every person has to do. This includes activities such as sleeping, sheltering oneself, asking for donations, or simply existing in public spaces. It also includes arbitrarily enforcing other laws and the practice of sweeps, which displaces homeless people from outdoor public spaces through harassment, threats, and evictions from living in camps. These activities make it very difficult for homeless people to exist without committing a crime. A report from the National Homeless Law Center tracked the upwards trend of criminalizing homeless in 187 cities and found that it actually has an adverse effect. In these cities, the practices of camping in public increased by 92%, begging increased by 103%, and loitering increased by 35%. These trends happen for many reasons, but partially because certain periods of incarceration under laws criminalizing homelessness directly harm a person's ability to maintain or access public housing. Furthermore, when a homeless person has been arrested for unavoidable behavior, they now have a criminal record and will often miss work for an extended period of time. This creates barriers that lessen the likeliness of employment or losing a pre-existing job. Also, court costs associated with resolving or appealing a case can amount to hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Individuals who do not have the resources to pay are then subject to additional jail time, once again interrupting any chance of maintaining employment. In these ways, an arrest or conviction can lead to lifelong barriers. The consequences of civil penalties are similar, as unpaid tickets can also lead to suspension of one's driver's license or repossession of a vehicle, which drastically limit the prospects of work for that person. The 2019 federal court case, Martin versus the City of Boise, involved 6 residents of the city who had experienced homelessness and who were arrested or cited due to violating a city ordinance that made it a misdemeanor to use any of the street's sidewalks, parks, or public spaces as a camping place at any time. The plaintiffs claimed this was a violation of their 8th Amendment constitutional rights, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. The court ruled that cities cannot arrest or punish people for sleeping on public property unless they provide adequate and accessible indoor accommodations. While this ruling acknowledge the fact that it is unfair to criminalize individuals for behaviors that are unavoidable and presumed they had a choice in the matter, there are still too many people in local governments who think that the right answer to homelessness is arresting people. The majority of cities have too few shelter beds. This shortage has been made worse since federal funding was scaled back in 2012. Our system gravitates towards the easiest and quickest solution to homelessness, which is arresting people and getting them out of sight. However, this is far from an adequate solution, as whether people are in jail or on the streets, they nevertheless remain homeless, increasing crimes. The solution is an attempt to avoid the core issues of homelessness and does not offer people the necessary resources to alleviate the barriers that cause homelessness in the first place. I found this article, as I said, it pretty much summarizes everything that I have experienced. I have been out here now for 4 years. I'm a 37-year-old woman, mother of 4. I've never had a drug addiction. I've never been chemically addicted to something, meaning I woke up and said, oh my God, I need to have this. I have engaged in recreational drug use. I do regret it. But it's not something I currently do. Maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it never affected my family life. It never got in the way of me parenting. And it did not lead to me being homeless in any way. The circumstances surrounding my specific homelessness is that I was violated domestically. I was a victim of domestic abuse. And my significant other was incredibly savvy at working the system. He was the person I appeared on the reality show Love After Lockup with. Everyone doubted me when I said he was beating me up. They said that I was crazy. But then if you Google his name and the person he left me for, he went to jail for beating her up as well. He also went to jail for beating up the woman before me. So now everyone's like, maybe Heather wasn't crazy, and they're apologizing to me, and the bloggers are rewriting their stories, but it didn't help me any. The bloggers rewriting their stories has not protected me from the slander at my jobs, has not protected me from the in-person stalking, has not protected me from the rape, from the sexual assault in the street in a tent, from having the wall ripped off my tent and being kicked in the face while 18 weeks pregnant with my son. None of that actually helped me. So I'm very grateful for anyone who rewrites their inaccurate blog depictions of me. I appreciate those retractions tremendously. However, it's not enough. 2020 was the first time that I was ever without a home. My children, I have 4 now, I had 3 at the time, lived with me from their birth in 2006 all the way till 2020, 4 or 5 days a week from the time they were born, if not more. There were weeks that they were with me 6 days a week. And this is consistently from the day they were born all the way until I began being abused by this person. When I was abused by him, he was on parole, and I called his parole office and I said, he's abusing me. And they said, while he listened on the other earpod, the Apple AirPods, he had one of mine. I didn't know. I thought I lost it. He was listening in the apartment upstairs that one of our friends lived in. And I was on the phone with parole saying, I need help. Parole advised me to go to 555 West Harrison and file for an emergency order of protection, which I did, but I couldn't get there in my vehicle because he heard me that I was going to go there, and he disconnected the starter in my vehicle. I then had to use public transportation, which gave him ample amounts of time to race me to the courthouse. And in the state of Illinois, if someone files for an EOP against you, you cannot file for one against them until you've been heard in court in response to the one they have filed against you. I did show up in court. His emergency request was thrown away. It was not granted. But that was too late. I already was thrown into the street. An apartment and stability that I had for my children my entire life was given to him, and I was thrown outside, where I have remained ever since. I've lived in Airbnbs. I slept in the backseat of my vehicle before it was mechanically destroyed, sabotaged, and sold, supposedly by auction. I paid my vehicle off in full. I don't owe any tickets on the vehicle at all. If I have any tickets at all, it has nothing to do with the vehicle. I don't owe any money on the vehicle. So they have no right to sell my vehicle at auction. They had no right to mechanically deface my vehicle. They had no right to break into a gated community and, key my vehicle, all of which was reported to law enforcement. Domestic violence led me to be homeless in 2020. But what has continued to, allow for these circumstances is the fact that I have been repeatedly and regularly calling 311 for assistance, going through the proper city channels, and not being assisted in the ways that are supposed to happen, in the ways that we as humans deserve. So now we were finally accepted into housing, and we have caseworkers through the Department of Family and Child. We have caseworkers through TASK, which is the people who monitor for drug use. And since we're in housing, they're testing us for drug use, which we comply with. And we have passed all of our drug tests, no problem, because we don't drink and we don't drug. Neither myself nor Xavier engage in those sorts of behaviors. Xavier does take CBD and marijuana still, which is legal in the state of Illinois, so that's not an issue, but there have never been any other drug issues other than marijuana for either one of us. And I use the term issue incredibly loosely. Now, being in compliance with all of these court-ordered, services, there is no excuse. If the ball is dropped again, these are blatant human rights violations. We are in, contact constantly with everyone. We are complying with all of our services. We come back here on certain days and all hell is breaking loose, and they're saying, well, people are being moved to different shelters and you guys are here until the 8th and we'll let you know when it's time to go and where you're going to go. So we're working with the director of the funding group, Equitable Solutions, and a specific staff member here. So we have our 2 contact people. I'm going to text them as soon as I get off of this live, but we have not been given any sort of foreshadowing or plan, which is incredibly destructive to a homeless person. Xavier and I have established ourselves here because we were told we would be here for 6 months, and that from here we would go directly to our own apartment or townhome. We're a family size of 6 with my 4 children. So, we are waiting for that. And unfortunately, it looks like that's not going to be what happens. It looks like rather than them keeping their word, we're going to be moved to another shelter before getting into our apartment, possibly. We still have our fingers crossed. It's not too late. It's not the 8th yet, and there's still time that they could give us our housing. But, we have referrals in for housing and case management in all areas. If there is a way, that way should be shared with us, and you would think that it is. As a person dealing with all of these court-ordered services and being compliant with all of them, plus being a full-time mother, which is my number 1 job and is never going to fall to my number 2 job, no matter what goes on. As long as I have feet and can speak, and ears to hear, I am going to be checking on my children and doing everything I can to provide for them, send them food, send them groceries, drop off gifts, give them hugs, be on the phone with them, playing Roblox with my youngest, doing whatever I can to be active in their lives, which is my first responsibility as a mother, period. I have a 4-month-old son. Breast pumping and breastfeeding is a responsibility of mine. So with all of that being said, can you imagine a person who is told that they would have 6 months in a shelter and then move to an apartment, what it might be like to establish yourself in the community, begin to create relationships with the church, begin to create relationships in the community, begin to seek opportunities. Xavier loves art. Our church just started an art program. Xavier has expressed interest, and we've emailed with the director of the art program so that Xavier could get involved. I've expressed interest in volunteering with meal programs. So to move from the position of homelessness into, fully functioning member of society, which I've been my entire life, certain considerations need to be made. If they're not made, it's almost like a sabotage. Like, rather than the resources working to help us, it almost feels as though they are intentionally working to sabotage. And that is unacceptable. That is unacceptable to the taxpayers for the money that they pay into these programs, for the money that they pay to resolve these issues like homelessness. And not only that, but when you're homeless, people are not able to live. In the article that I just shared with you guys, and as I said, if you go to my story here on the 1HGV Law account, there is a direct link that you can click on and you can read the story for yourself and review it. And I would be grateful if you would be a contributing member of society. What is your impact, as I so commonly ask? But if you would read that article, you would see that all crimes of violence, crimes of theft, crimes of sexual assault, they all go up as the homeless population rises. So if the city is aware of that, and the state of Illinois is aware of that, and the federal government is aware of that, unless they were in the business of manufacturing crime, they would resolve that. So my only hope, you guys, moving forward is that we have AI, right? AI can easily be a case manager. Let's say we're in a facility like the one we're in now. I believe there are 100 rooms here, and they accept couples. So they have the capacity to house up to 200 people, right? Very simply, those people can be logged in a Rolodex, in a CRM of sorts. All of their compliance to court-ordered or case management-ordered services, task, court dates, job searching, volunteering, or none of that, just waking up, hygiene, depending on each individual person, that can all be logged in some sort of CRM that can be created specific to need. Just like EMR has been created to healthcare need. We have electronic medical records in every hospital and doctor's office. That's not universal. Those are not just one standard template. They go in, we get technologists to go in and meet with our doctors and say, okay, what is it that you need? Can I sit in on a visit? What do you ask these patients? What's your HEENT? Head, ears, eyes, nose, throat. What's your ROS, review of systems? What is your protocol? Where do you free chart? Where do you need lines for prescription? Where do you need a data entry field for, environmental impact and circumstances? So we can do the same thing, and I believe we should have. In 2024, there is zero excuse that we should have millions of apps that are money-making apps, that are consumerism-based, and absolutely no, central organization for homelessness and services for the poor. I mean, that's obscene. So we should already be ahead of the game on that. Have millions of apps that are money-making apps, that are consumerism based, and absolutely no, central organization for homelessness and services for the poor. I mean, that's obscene. So we should already be ahead of the game on this, and we should have these central intake systems where we have no need for human case managers. Or maybe one human case manager to manage 200 cases because of the AI function. Say, for instance, I do or don't, say, for instance, Susan was ordered to take drug therapy, was ordered to take individual therapy, and was ordered to take therapy with her children or with her parent. If Susan no-shows to that therapy, the integrated electronic record from that therapy should be directly connected to the housing resource. So if she no-shows, it sends a notice to the housing resource and says, oops, Susan didn't show up today. Is she okay? And then maybe the AI sends an email or a text to Susan. Hey, Susan, you missed your therapy for the day. Are you okay? And Susan has the ability to respond, yes, I'm okay. I'll be there tomorrow. Or no, I'm not okay. At that point, a human can come up and check on Susan. Or if Susan doesn't answer at all, a human can come up and check on Susan. It doesn't eliminate the need for humans, but it dramatically reduces the need, which makes it easier for everyone because they could still get paid the same amount, but there could be one case manager for every space like this. Do you see what I'm saying? And the workload decreases dramatically. And if we have too many people who are able and willing to work in the field of case management, hey, guess what? Take 2 days a week and still get a full-time salary. Go home with your family and enjoy them. And the same for the people who are living through homelessness. We should not be suffering in 2024. I have said this before and I will say it again. We should not be suffering in 2024. Suffering is not pertinent to the human condition, is not beneficial to the human experience. And people who say that it is are lying.